Mopio! I'm whammy. Oh shit, sorry, are we online? Is it live? Okay, hey, Okay, good evening, folks, and welcome back. My name is Dan, and tonight we get the second part of the Tuweo story, whatever that means. Before we start, I want to say something. Something about stories and storytelling. Stories are a vessel of information and knowledge. And good stories are the most powerful weapon we have in the information war. Stories that are intriguing enough to get listened to are mimetic. They evade mental blocks and convey real information even to the minds that has been stolen. And when these stories are shared by their listeners, they soon become super weapons. This is why we do what we do. This is important. And we think that the stories we share on this channel, on their own and together, will, with time, make it click for more and more people. And some of you will choose to verify the stories for yourself, and with that, start to see things that you before this could not. If you have an interesting fact-based story or a real-world event that you think more people should know about, send it to us and we will make it into a theatrical radio production. And if you enjoy our content and see that we are on the same side in the information war, we ask you, do your part in this. Please share it with a link on your Facebook, Twitter, or wherever you are on the internet. And if you have the stamina, make it controversial so the people who will try to mock and ridicule are the ones watching. They need it the most. Okay, that's that. Now, we got sent a letter with a beautiful story about a man named Chauncey Thomas, who probably was one of the first to be socially canceled. A respected scientist working on the top projects turned into a loon and a charlatan. Well, this letter tells a different story. Let's go.
With a rumble so low as to be inaudible, growing, throbbing, then fuming into a thundering roar, the earthquake starts, only it's not like any earthquake in recorded history. In California, the mountains shake like ferns in a breeze. The mighty Pacific rears back and piles up into a mountain of seawater more than 2 miles high. Then starts its race eastward. With the force of 1,000 armies, the wind attacks, ripping, shredding everything in its supersonic bombardment. The unbelievable mountain of Pacific seawater follows the wind eastward, burying Los Angeles and San Francisco as if they were but grains of sand. Nothing but nothing stops the relentless, overwhelming onslaught of wind and ocean. Across the continent, the 1,000-mile-per-hour wind wreaks its hell, its unholy vengeance, everywhere, mercilessly, unceasingly. Every living thing is ripped into shreds while being blown across the countryside, and earthquakes leave no place untouched. In many places, the Earth's molten sublayer bleaks through and spreads a sea of white-hot liquid fire to add to the Holocaust. Within 3 hours, the fantastic wall of seawater moves across the continent, burying the wind-ravaged land under 2 miles of seething water coast to coast. In a fraction of a day, all vestiges of civilization are gone, and the great cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, New York, Boston, are nothing but legends. Barely a stone is left where millions walked just a few hours before. A few lucky ones who managed to find shelter from the screaming wind on the lee side of a high mountain peak, such as Mount Massive, watched the sea of molten fire breaking through the quaking valleys below. The raging waters follow at supersonic speeds, piling higher and higher, steaming over the molten earth fire, and rising almost to their feet. Only great, high mountains such as this one can withstand the cataclysmic onslaught. North America is not alone in her death throes. Central America suffers the same cannonade, wind, earth fire, and inundation. South America finds the Andes not high enough to stop the cataclysmic violence pounded out by nature in her berserk rage. In less than a day, Ecuador, Peru, and western Brazil are shaken madly by the devastating earthquake. The Andes are piled higher and higher by the Pacific's supersonic onslaught as it surges over itself against the mountains. The entire continent is burned by molten earth fire, buried under cubic miles of catastrophically violent seas, and then turned into a frozen hell. Everything freezes. Man, beast, plant, and mud are all rock-hard in less than 4 hours. Europe cannot escape the onslaught. The raging Atlantic piles higher and higher on itself, following the screeching wind eastward. The Alps, Pyrenees, Urals, and the Scandinavian mountains are shaken, then heaved even higher when the wall of seawater strikes. Western Africa and the sands of the Sahara vanish nature's wrath, under savage attack by wind and ocean. The area bounded by Zaire, South Africa, and Kenya suffers only severe earthquakes and winds. Little inundation. Survivors there marvel at the sun, standing still in the sky for nearly half a day. Eastern Siberia and the Orient suffer a strange late indeed. As though a giant subterranean scythe sweeps away the earth's foundations, accompanied by die wind, in its screaming symphony of supersonic loath and destruction. As the Arctic basin leaves its polar home, eastern Siberia, Manchuria, China, and Burma are subjected to the same annihilation as South America: wind, earth fire, inundation, and freezing. Jungle animals are shredded to ribbons by the wind, piled into mountains of flesh and bone, and buried under avalanches of homogenized seawater and mud. And then comes the sudden, seemingly infinite supply of terrible, instantly paralyzing temperature drop of 180 degrees. No man, beast, plant, muck, earth, nor water is left unfrozen in the entire Eastern Asian continent, most of which remains below sea level. Antarctica and Greenland, with their ice caps, now rotate around the Earth in the torrid zone, and the fury of wind and inundation marches on for 6 days. During the 6th day, the oceans start to settle in their new homes, running off the high grounds. On the 7th day, the horrendous rampage is over, the Arctic Ice Age is ended, and a new Stone Age begins. The oceans, the great homogenizers, have laid down another deep layer of mud over the existing strata in the Great Plains, as exposed in the Grand Canyon, Painted Desert, Monument Valley, and the Badlands. The Bay of Bengal Basin, just east of India, is now at the North Pole. The Pacific Ocean, just west of Peru, is at the South Pole. Greenland and Antarctica, now rotating equatorially, find their ice caps dissolving madly in the tropical heat. Massive walls of water and ice surge toward the oceans, taking everything, from mountains to plains, in gushing, heaving paths, while creating immense seasonal moraines. In less than 25 years, the ice caps are gone, and the oceans around the world rise over 200 feet with the newfound water. The torrid zone will be shrouded in a fog for generations from the enormous amounts of moisture poured into the atmosphere by the melting ice caps. New ice caps begin to form in the new polar areas. Greenland and Antarctica emerge with verdant tropical foliage. Australia is the new unexplored continent in the North Temperate Zone, with only a few handfuls of survivors populating its vastness. New York lies at the bottom of the Atlantic, shattered, melted by earth fire, and covered by unbelievable amounts of mud. Of San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, and Boston, not a trace is left. They all will join the legends of the 7 cities of Cibola. What's left of Egypt emerges from its Mediterranean inundation new and higher, still the land of the ages. The commonplace of our time becomes the Mise, Terrius Baalbek of the new era. A new era. Yes, the cataclysm has done its work well. The greatest population regulator of all does once more for man what he refuses to do for himself and the planet on which he lives, and drives the pitiful few who survive into a new Stone Age. After this cataclysm we join Noah, Adam and Eve, Atlantis, Mu, and Olympus, and Jesus joins Osiris, Taroa, Zeus, and Vishnu. These are the first pages of Chauncey Thomas, and I guess is used as a tool both to discourage the nosy reader and to set the stage for his findings. In the following 40 or so pages, he goes into depth, showing the reader that there is insurmountable evidence that we, in fact, are the 6th advanced civilization to exist upon this planet, each time in predictable cycles, getting wiped out by a cataclysm. When you dive into his work, he shows how the system of legends and religion tells a story of the cycle of resets to humanity. In the released version, that looks to be complete, but isn't. I would say its contents have been replaced with other texts to incriminate Chauncey and make him look like a fool. There is a distinct change of tone and message. If you find it, I think you probably would agree. What makes this so interesting to me and why I want to share my thoughts with the world is that his predictions seem to play out. I believe he was and is right about this. I look at this like this. We have a man who we can prove was a distinguished engineer, who we can prove was working on the most advanced military technology of his day, a man who claimed to have found out how to read and interpret the electromagnetic radiance, and in a way was confirmed on this by being recruited into one of the first black budget projects working, maybe, on advanced electromagnetics and plasma. That man disappeared for 8 years after discovering it, and came back with a story and a mountain of evidence of an alternative history of man as we know it. Add to this that the CIA confiscated his works, classified it for the maximum time possible, and when 50 years had passed, released a, what I am certain of, edited version. I think we should listen to what he had to say, so I started to research him and his claims. This was more than a year ago, and the corroborating evidence for his story is almost unlimited. New knowledge and theories of lost civilizations and changes of attitude in the archaeology community is one part. But the strongest, and for me most convincing piece of the puzzle is the fact that the tumbling, as he called it, has begun. What we call the magnetic North Pole, that wobbles with the tilt of the Earth, has started to move and to accelerate, just as he predicted would happen 61 years ago.
Okay, folks, that was a fascinating story. Might be worth looking closer at this one. Next up, we trick you to be angry about something irrelevant and probably not true to further our agenda. Now we are angry. No, just kidding. That's on another channel. Haha. Have a nice evening, folks. Stay safe and see you soon.